In the shadow of the great Roman Empire, amidst political turmoil and religious upheaval, one man would leave an indelible mark on history: Paul the Apostle. From a zealous persecutor of Christians to a fervent believer, Paul's life was one of dramatic transformation and unwavering faith. But his unwavering dedication to spreading the gospel led him into the crosshairs of one of the most infamous rulers in history, Emperor Nero. How did this once powerful Pharisee meet such a tragic and violent end? What events sealed his fate, bringing him face to face with one of the most brutal emperors of all time? And why did Nero, known for his cruelty and madness, target this humble apostle for execution? Was it political? Was it personal? Or was there something more, something deeper that linked the rise of Christianity to the fall of Paul? These questions have puzzled historians and believers alike for centuries. Today, we dive deep into the final days of the Apostle Paul's life, uncovering the dark conspiracy that led to his execution under Nero's reign. What truly happened, and why? Welcome to Revealing the Gospel channel. Stay with us as we unravel the mystery behind one of the most dramatic martyrdoms in Christian history. The truth may be more shocking than you ever imagined. In the heart of the Roman Empire, amidst a burgeoning wave of belief, one man emerged as a pivotal figure in the spread of Christianity: Paul the Apostle. Originally known as Saul of Tarsus, he transformed from a zealous persecutor of Christians into one of their most ardent advocates. His dramatic conversion on the road to Damascus set the stage for a life dedicated to evangelism and theological exploration. Paul traveled extensively throughout the Mediterranean, preaching to diverse audiences and laying the foundations of what would become the Christian church. His journeys not only united disparate communities of believers, but also established a rich tapestry of Christian thought that would resonate through the ages. Paul's missionary journeys were nothing short of extraordinary. Over the course of his life, he embarked on 3 major expeditions, traversing treacherous landscapes and bustling cities. From the shores of Asia Minor to the heart of Greece and the grandeur of Rome, Paul was relentless in his pursuit of spreading the message of Jesus Christ. Each journey was fraught with peril as he faced hostility, imprisonment, and physical hardships. Yet, despite these obstacles, he established churches and nurtured fledgling Christian communities. His ability to connect with diverse groups, from Jews to Gentiles, was a testament to his unwavering faith and commitment to his mission. Each city he visited became a crucible for the new faith, a testament to his vision of a united community under the banner of Christ. In addition to his travels, Paul's influence is indelibly marked by his prolific writings. His epistles, which comprise a significant portion of the New Testament, were not merely letters, they were theological treatises that addressed pressing issues within the early church. Through eloquent prose, he articulated doctrines of grace, redemption, and the nature of the church. His letters to communities like Corinth, Ephesus, and Rome were instrumental in shaping Christian beliefs and practices. Paul's writings emphasized the importance of faith over works, introducing concepts that would resonate with believers for centuries. His theological insights laid the groundwork for debates and discussions that continue to shape Christianity today, making him a central figure in its doctrinal development. As Christianity began to grow, so did the tensions between its followers and the Roman authorities. Paul's ministry unfolded against a backdrop of suspicion and hostility. The early Christians were often viewed as subversive, challenging the very foundations of Roman society and its pantheon of gods. Paul himself was no stranger to persecution. He faced numerous trials and tribulations, including beatings and imprisonment, yet remained undeterred. The Roman Empire, characterized by its quest for stability and order, saw the emerging Christian sect as a threat. As the followers of Jesus gained traction, the tension between the two worlds escalated, setting the stage for a dramatic clash that would ultimately lead to Paul's tragic end. In the year 54 AD, a young man ascended to the throne of Rome, a figure destined to become synonymous with tyranny: Nero. Initially welcomed as a breath of fresh air, he inherited a prosperous empire. Under the influence of his mother, Agrippina, and the seasoned advisor Seneca, Nero's early reign appeared promising, marked by artistic endeavors and a veneer of benevolence. However, the seeds of his darker nature lay buried beneath this facade. As his reign progressed, ambition and paranoia warped his leadership, leading him down a path that would result in unthinkable cruelty. The emperor's insatiable thirst for power and control foreshadowed a tumultuous era for Rome and its people, setting the stage for a persecution that would engulf the burgeoning Christian community. As the years passed, the mask of benevolence slipped, revealing a ruler increasingly consumed by paranoia. Fearing plots against him, Nero turned against those closest to him, orchestrating a series of ruthless purges. His mother, once a powerful ally, was executed on his orders, her blood staining the very palace she had helped him secure. The emperor's descent into madness was marked by extravagant spectacles and the persecution of any who dared to oppose him. As dissent grew among the populace, Nero shifted his focus toward the Christians, viewing them as convenient scapegoats in a city rife with unrest. His reign, characterized by brutality and excess, would soon erupt into a full-blown crisis, igniting a wave of terror that would consume the empire. Initially, Nero's rule exhibited a degree of tolerance towards the nascent Christian movement. In the early years of his reign, the empire was more concerned with external threats than internal dissent. The Christians, viewed as a sect within Judaism, were largely overlooked as they quietly spread their beliefs. However, this tolerance was fleeting. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD would be the catalyst for a seismic shift in Nero's approach. As flames engulfed the city, consuming homes and temples alike, the emperor sought to divert blame from himself. The once marginalized Christians would soon find themselves in the crosshairs of Nero's wrath, labeled as arsonists and enemies of the state. This would mark the beginning of one of the most infamous periods of persecution in history. On July 18th, 64 AD, the Great Fire erupted in Rome, a conflagration that would rage for 6 days, leaving much of the city in ruins. As chaos reigned and the streets filled with smoke, Nero watched from a distance, allegedly playing his lyre as the city burned. In the aftermath, with public outrage simmering, he needed a scapegoat to appease the angry masses. Enter the Christians, a group already viewed with suspicion and disdain. In a calculated move, Nero publicly blamed them for the fire, igniting a wave of brutal persecution. This was not merely an attempt to quell dissent. It was a calculated strategy to reassert his authority and eliminate a growing threat. As fires burned across the city, so too did the flames of hatred toward the followers of Christ, who would soon find themselves facing unimaginable suffering at the hands of a deranged emperor. In the wake of the Great Fire, Rome was a city on edge. The once bustling streets, now filled with ash and destruction, mirrored the turmoil brewing within the heart of its emperor. Public sentiment was volatile. Citizens searched for answers and accountability amid the ruins. Nero's government, shaken by the disaster, faced an angry populace demanding justice and stability. The emperor, desperate to shift the blame away from himself and his administration, exploited the prevailing fear to consolidate his power. With whispers of conspiracy circulating through the streets, he saw an opportunity to redirect the public's rage towards the Christians, a group already marginalized and demonized. The political climate was ripe for persecution, setting the stage for one of the most notorious witch hunts in history. With Christians framed as the culprits behind the Great Fire, Nero unleashed a wave of brutal persecution that would become infamous in history. He took advantage of the public's fear and ignorance, depicting Christians as dangerous extremists bent on undermining Roman values. In the ensuing frenzy, thousands were arrested, tortured, and executed. Nero's methods were both sadistic and theatrical. He famously had Christians used as living torches to illuminate his gardens during nighttime feasts, their screams mingling with the sounds of revelry. This macabre spectacle served a dual purpose. It reinforced Nero's power while instilling fear in the hearts of those who might oppose him. The persecution was not merely an act of vengeance. It was a calculated strategy to cement his control over the Roman Empire. The methods employed against the Christians were nothing short of horrifying. As the persecution escalated, a litany of brutal punishments emerged. Many were subjected to horrific executions, including being thrown to wild beasts in the arena, a gruesome entertainment for the masses. Others faced more insidious forms of torture. Some were nailed to crosses or burned alive. The sheer brutality of these acts was intended not only to punish, but also to instill terror among the populace, discouraging any sympathy for the Christians. Paul, as one of the most visible leaders of the Christian movement, became a prime target in this climate of fear and hostility. His fate was sealed in an environment that viewed Christians as the embodiment of treachery against the Roman state. As the flames of persecution consumed Rome, Paul's prominence as a leading apostle made him an obvious target for Nero's wrath. Having traveled extensively and established numerous congregations, he was viewed as a formidable threat to the emperor's authority. The Roman authorities recognized that eliminating influential figures like Paul could destabilize the entire Christian movement. As a Roman citizen, Paul was entitled to certain rights, but this did not spare him from the machinations of a paranoid emperor. Nero's desire to crush the Christian uprising led to Paul's arrest and imprisonment, marking the beginning of a tragic chapter in the life of one of Christianity's most important figures. The stakes were high, and the empire's future hung in the balance as both Paul and Nero played their parts in this deadly game of power and faith. Paul's arrest marked a turning point in his mission as an apostle. Following his return to Jerusalem after years of evangelism, Paul faced hostility from both Jewish leaders and Roman authorities. After a series of trials, he appealed to Caesar, which led him to Rome as a prisoner. Arriving in the imperial city, Paul was placed under house arrest, a situation that offered him a degree of freedom compared to traditional imprisonment. Yet the walls of his confinement were laden with uncertainty. While he awaited trial, Paul continued to preach and teach, receiving visitors and writing letters to various churches. This period of house arrest became a poignant chapter in his life, as it underscored both his resilience and the looming threat of imminent execution hanging over him. During his house arrest, Paul wrote several poignant letters, many of which would later be included in the New Testament. These writings, including the epistles to the Philippians, Ephesians, and Timothy, are imbued with themes of hope, perseverance, and unwavering faith. Even in the face of potential death, Paul's words resonated with a profound sense of purpose. He encouraged his followers to remain steadfast in their faith, highlighting the importance of unity and love within the Christian community. His letters became a lifeline for many, spreading his teachings and fortifying the resolve of believers facing their own struggles in a hostile world. Each word he penned became a testament to his indomitable spirit, inspiring generations to come. While under house arrest, Paul's conditions were relatively humane compared to traditional Roman prisons, yet they were fraught with tension. He was allowed visitors and the opportunity to preach, but constant surveillance ensured that he remained firmly under the control of the Roman authorities. The atmosphere was charged with danger. Even as he communicated with the outside world, the reality of Nero's capricious rule loomed large. Guards watched his every move, and any hint of insurrection or dissent could lead to severe repercussions. Despite the relatively comfortable setting, the threat of execution remained omnipresent. Paul's imprisonment symbolized the precariousness of his situation, a reminder that one of the most influential voices of early Christianity was now a pawn in the deadly game of politics. As the months passed, Paul's trial approached, a critical moment that would determine his fate. The Roman legal system was often a labyrinthine ordeal, and for Paul, a man accused of undermining the state, the stakes were exceedingly high. In the courtroom, he stood not only as a defendant but as a representative of the Christian faith. He was tasked with defending his beliefs against the weight of Roman law and the biases of a regime eager to suppress any challenge to its authority. The trial was more than a mere legal proceeding. It was a confrontation of ideologies, Roman paganism versus the burgeoning faith of Christianity. Paul, emboldened by his convictions, likely spoke passionately about his beliefs, defending the faith that had consumed his life. However, the outcome was inevitable in a world ruled by an emperor who viewed him as a threat. The wheels of fate were already in motion, setting the stage for a tragic end. In the heart of the Roman legal system, the fate of its citizens was shrouded in a complex tapestry of laws and customs. Although Paul was a Roman citizen, which granted him certain privileges, the political landscape under Nero was fraught with peril. Roman citizens were typically spared the more humiliating forms of execution, such as crucifixion, reserved for non-citizens and slaves. Instead, they faced execution by beheading, a swift and often less painful method. However, in Nero's Rome, the traditional legal protocols became mere footnotes in a narrative defined by political expediency and terror. The emperor's growing paranoia and desire to eliminate perceived threats overshadowed the legal rights of individuals, leaving Paul vulnerable to the whims of a capricious ruler eager to silence dissent. In a world where brutality reigned, Paul's status as a Roman citizen offered him a semblance of protection, yet it could not shield him from the inevitable consequences of Nero's vendetta. While many Christians faced gruesome deaths by crucifixion or wild beasts, Paul's citizenship afforded him a more dignified fate. However, this dignity was laced with tragedy. Beheading would signify the end of his earthly journey, yet it would also elevate his status to that of a martyr. The act of execution would not erase his teachings or the legacy he had built. Instead, it would ignite a flame of faith that would inspire countless believers to follow in his footsteps, solidifying his place as a cornerstone of Christianity. The decision to execute him by beheading was a calculated move by Nero, one that sought to extinguish the voice of a formidable leader while inadvertently casting a spotlight on his unwavering faith. Historical accounts suggest that Paul met his fate between 64 and 67 AD, though the precise date remains uncertain. What is widely accepted, however, is the manner of his death. The tradition holds that Paul was beheaded outside the city of Rome, a somber act that marked the end of an era. As the executioner's blade fell, the heavens seemed to mourn the loss of a man who had dedicated his life to spreading the gospel. It was a moment of profound significance. The death of Paul, one of Christianity's most ardent advocates, echoed through the annals of history. The story of his martyrdom became a rallying cry for early Christians, a testament to the lengths to which believers would go for their faith. His death, while tragic, symbolized the triumph of spiritual conviction over the oppressive might of an empire. Paul's martyrdom sent shockwaves through the early Christian community, solidifying his legacy as a symbol of unwavering faith and resilience in the face of tyranny. News of his execution spread like wildfire, igniting a fervor among believers. The story of his sacrifice galvanized Christians, inspiring them to remain steadfast in their faith, even in the face of impending danger. His teachings, previously circulated through letters, now took on a new gravity. They became sacred texts, each word a beacon of hope for those grappling with persecution. In the wake of his death, the Christian church flourished, transforming Paul into a martyr whose influence transcended geographical boundaries. His legacy would continue to inspire generations of believers to stand firm in their convictions, a testament to the power of faith in overcoming oppression. As Paul's life was extinguished in the shadows of Rome, so too was the stability of Nero's reign. The execution of one of Christianity's most prominent figures was not an isolated act. It was part of a broader pattern of chaos that characterized Nero's rule. Soon after Paul's martyrdom, a series of crises would unravel the emperor's grip on power. A combination of political dissent, economic instability, and military discontent began to bubble beneath the surface, leading to widespread revolts against Nero's authority. His reign descended into madness, culminating in a rebellion led by influential senators and military leaders. In 68 AD, faced with insurmountable opposition, Nero fled Rome, ultimately taking his own life. The downfall of Nero marked a turning point for the Roman Empire, but it also cast a long shadow over the Christian community, which continued to face persecution even as the emperor's reign came to an end. In the wake of Paul's death and the subsequent chaos that engulfed Rome, Christianity began to flourish in ways that few could have anticipated. Despite the persecution and the heavy toll it took on its followers, the message of Jesus Christ resonated more deeply than ever. Paul's martyrdom became a source of inspiration, motivating countless believers to share their faith boldly, even in the face of danger. The seeds of Christianity, planted in the rich soil of Paul's teachings and sacrifices, began to sprout across the empire. House churches emerged, believers gathered in secret, and the faith spread like wildfire, reaching beyond the boundaries of the Roman world. The message of hope, redemption, and eternal life became a refuge for the oppressed, and the blood of martyrs like Paul watered the growth of a movement that would ultimately transform the world. Paul's influence extended far beyond his earthly life. It permeated the very fabric of Christian theology and evangelism. His epistles became foundational texts, shaping doctrinal understanding and ethical teachings for generations. Concepts of grace, faith, and the body of Christ, central to Christian belief, were articulated with clarity and passion in his writings. Moreover, Paul's commitment to spreading the gospel to Gentiles broke down cultural barriers, emphasizing that salvation was accessible to all. His missionary zeal set a precedent for future generations of evangelists and missionaries who would follow in his footsteps, traveling to distant lands to share the message of Christ. The legacy of Paul's teachings and his relentless pursuit of spreading the gospel would resonate through the centuries, shaping the development of Christianity as a global faith. The story of Paul's martyrdom became a powerful symbol within the Christian community, establishing a paradigm for understanding sacrifice in the name of faith. His unwavering commitment to the gospel, even in the face of death, resonated deeply with early Christians facing persecution. Paul was not merely seen as a historical figure, he became an archetype of the faithful believer, embodying the very essence of what it meant to suffer for Christ. The concept of martyrdom emerged as a cornerstone of Christian identity, inspiring believers to view their trials as opportunities for spiritual growth and witness. The courage displayed by Paul and others like him forged a legacy that would empower Christians for centuries, encouraging them to stand firm in their beliefs, even in the direst circumstances. His story became a rallying cry for faithfulness, reminding future generations that the path of sacrifice often leads to greater truths. In the annals of history, the figure of Paul the Apostle stands as a testament to the power of faith in the face of adversity. His life, marked by relentless dedication to spreading the gospel, culminated in a martyrdom that echoed through time. As the flames of persecution flickered around him, Paul remained resolute, his writings and teachings lighting the way for countless believers navigating the treacherous waters of faith. The aftermath of his death not only catalyzed the growth of Christianity, but also solidified his role as a foundational pillar of the faith. The legacy of Paul, his teachings, his courage, and his ultimate sacrifice continues to inspire and challenge Christians to this day, reminding them that even in the darkest moments, the light of faith can shine brightly.